everybody, and welcome to the TTV Podcast episode. I don't know because I didn't bother paying attention.
Boom Diata?
Boom Diata,
When
yeah.
do we open
Boom
with
Diata.
anything close
Mardi
to
Grata.
Yes. This is it.
This is
the next level of
that? Is
podcast
this a
magic.
90s Disney movie or something?
Art. Yes, it is Takuma.
Yeah.
So who are we?
Yeah, I was gonna do that, X, but I was still doing the intro. Thank you very much.
Oh. Well,
In case you guys are confused, this is the TTV Podcast. We're decided to do it live. It's a very live special episode that we're going to be talking about Star Wars. So if you haven't seen Star Wars, I want to tune out. But for right now, we'll introduce ourselves. I'm Var.
I'm John.
I'm Takuma Nuva.
And that's EXX Trooper.
I'm EXX Trooper.
Everyone was prepared for it, but expert.
I wasn't even.
Prepare for what? What? What's
Prepare.
Did you just have a stroke? Are you okay? X, are you fine?
Am I cutting out?
No,
You were
you're
cutting
just
out.
like.
I-
No, he didn't cut out. He just you just kind of slurred over what you were saying.
Oh, well, because everything you guys were saying was kind of like cutting out and everything. The internet is kind of bad here, but I'm just kind of used to like BrickFeed now, so that we say names right away.
Nah,
So-
that's not my forte, dude. I don't like doing that.
Yeah, well, I'm just not used to it. So like when you don't say the names right away,
Here's my philosophy.
panic right away.
My philosophy to whenever I host a podcast, it's be completely unprepared and just kind of wing it.
Nice.
Yeah, that's what I do, yo.
Oh, Jiddle did a poster here. Who am I in this? Who am I?
You are
Am I
you're Leia.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
It could be worse. I'll take it.
So
it's Star
am I
Wars.
Kylo Ren?
You are Kylo Ren, yeah. Purple
Oh,
is
Purple's right. Oh,
Mm.
uh-oh.
Uh-oh.
Yikes.
I feel like it'd be funner if those two switched around. To be honest.
That would be funner.
Actually, no, Purple was a bit
Yeah.
more like
That
Kylo
makes more
Ren.
sense. Purple's
Yeah.
definitely like dark side.
Yeah. She's like,
Yeah.
no, she's not dark side. She's like try hard dark side where she really wants
Try-hard
to be.
dark side,
She
yeah.
wants to
Yeah,
be like
that's
Darth Vader,
it.
but she's
Yeah.
not really there, you know? She's kind of like,
He's conflicted.
yeah, she's kind of conflicted and she kind of like, she just wants to be
Yeah,
edgy.
I like it.
Yeah, there she goes. Yeah, I'm the edgy one. That's what she says.
Cool. Is the chat in the video?
The chat is in the video, as well as
Alright,
a little
cool.
video
Which
going
of
over
the chats?
everything Star Wars.
Discord or
The
YouTube?
Discord one, the sponsor chat.
Discord one, yeah.
All right. So, if you're just tuning in and you missed it, we're going to be talking about Star Wars today. And it is going to be a spoiler discussion. So,
I put it
I
up
hope
in
that's
the,
in
in the title.
I
Yeah,
hope
it's in
that's
the title.
Okay, cool.
So spoilers.
Because I don't want to give people more excuses to complain about something.
Fun fact: we can actually just change the title of this podcast as it goes on. Right now, it just says "Why the Last Jedi Sucks." So people
Awesome.
are already
Cool.
there.
Never mind about that whole complaining thing. We're already
We've
getting it out
estab-
of the gate.
Oh boy.
You said about anything if you like this
Prepare
movie.
for 2,000 word comments about how we are ignorant and not open-minded.
Oh yeah, we hate change. We hate all the cool stuff and everything like that.
This
I'm
movie was
going
so
through,
bad, Nintendo must have made it.
Yeah, well,
It was
Um,
submitted?
I don't know, man.
Nintendo made it. Nintendo Star Wars.
Nintendo did make it.
Okay.
There's a member in our live chat on YouTube, Regular Plumbus, who says this movie was the most disappointing thing since my son. Which is-
We'll get into it. Actually,
Yeah,
that's a great little segue.
yeah.
Before we actually go into any kind of details about anything, let's just give out like our general opinions and thoughts of the movie. Okay, Takuma.
Alright.
Oh, we're
How did
starting
you
with
feel
me?
about this
Oh
movie?
wait, no.
Yeah.
Are we not doing his life stuff? Do we not want to? Can we talk about?
I mean,
life?
if
It's
we,
okay.
I guess we could.
Nah, it's
if you-
okay.
if-
Well, we'll
if
talk
You're gonna
about-
pull a bait and switch? Everyone's like, ooh, the Last Jedi spoilers. No, let's
Yeah,
talk about
like-
Takuma's life.
We'll do that later. We'll do an after show. We can. What? I'm
We can do
here
it
for a
afterwards,
while.
sure.
I'm on holiday. I'm on break. Let's go.
I mean, to be fair though, I mostly just want to talk about slice of life stuff because I would basically be bragging about how cool my last week was. So
All right.
we
All
can
right.
just-
All right.
I see.
we can do that later or not at all, or you know.
We'll see if we can
that's
slot
okay.
it in.
Just somewhere in the middle, just break off the conversation entirely. Oh, related to that, just talk about stuff that's not at all related. Maybe that's going to be my goal, is drop this whole Star Wars discussion. I'm going to figure out how to segue into that.
Here, you know what you should segue into? What your thoughts of the movie was.
No, this is the part where I plugged my Twitter because I said it on Twitter. Hey, you can check out twitter.com/TakumaLight.
Why is it Takuma Light?
Yeah, what's the light part?
Legitimately, the reason a lot of my accounts are Takuma Light is because it actually goes back to Lego.com, like way
I don't care.
back.
I don't care.
Well, no, I had an account that was, I can't remember if it was Takuma or just Takuma, but I couldn't remember, I couldn't get back into the account for some reason, so I had to duplicate.
All right, so I did not like the Last
Directed
Jedi.
by M. Night Shyamalan Ding Dong.
I did not like this movie. I came out of the theater, and I remember I was talking to my friends, and I was like, I don't think I like this movie. And they're like, what? And I was like, I don't think I liked it. And I went home, and I slept on it, and I woke up, and I was like, I really did not like this movie. I had to sleep on it, but like, I didn't like it. Okay,
so legitimately, my opinion, it's actually kind of hard to say because my initial impression coming out of there, well, that was weird since into my life, but my initial impression was like 5 out of 10. I had a lot of complaints, but it wasn't that bad. But at this point, it's like, I don't know if I still feel it was kind of that middle road good, but had a lot of problems, or if I also thought it was pretty bad and I'm just in denial. Or I like being in the middle where everyone else is not.
Yeah. Oh, real quickly. John, is it possible to switch the chat over to the Star Wars spoilers chat?
Yeah, I can work on it. Give me a second though. I'll take it.
Okay, because I just realized that if we want the patrons to like say anything in the chat, then they're gonna have to like.
Listen, okay, I'll be completely honest here. It's Friday, right? It's been 1 week since the movie came out. Spoilers for me, 1 week was the absolute maximum that I care about spoilers or withholding spoilers from people.
Do you still have me muted on Twitter?
They just started spoiling things in the chat, so. I tried, guys. I tried.
I think what we need to do is we just need to also post in a bunch of stuff that is not actually spoilers. That way, if someone comes back and reads all this, it's just, Schrodinger spoilers.
No, I mean, like, at this point, it's like a thing where, all right, I get that, like, not everyone's able to see it Thursday. It was sold out, everything. Not everyone's able to see it Friday or Saturday. But by the time it's been a whole week, I mean, I actually felt after the weekend, I was like, if you care enough about spoilers, you're either
if you care about spoilers,
internet,
you should be seeing it open.
or you saw it. Yeah, those are like over two. You can. I don't think it's like past the opening weekend. There's a common courtesy. After that, it's your responsibility to not be spoiled, not anyone else's. So if someone starts talking about it, just be like, oh, I haven't seen it yet.
Fair enough. Anyway, so X, what did you think about the movie?
So I have gone through a lot of things with this movie, and I'm legitimately, while I'm saying this, I am trying to keep this short. I will say that like I very much loved some parts of the movie. I very much liked some stuff about the movie, and then there was stuff about it which I very much didn't like, and I thought it was completely wrong, and I thought it was just why. And so it's just a combination of these two things, and you'd think that would make up for like, it's an okay movie for me. You squeeze those together, evens them so out. But like, I don't really know, because I don't know what to think of it. And I think, but like the big thing of why a lot of like my friends who really like Star Wars and why this movie and why I think like a lot of people have so many polarizing opinions about this is just because the first movie, it kind of didn't change what came before. It just it just went very much. But this time around, they went for something very completely different in terms of like it will be different no matter what, because they took away the expanded universe, everything, all that. But it's the fact that they changed something that they had, if that makes any sense. For it,
Mhm.
the whole thing about, I'm trying really hard to put this short, but with Charizard, they made him Mega Charizard, and that didn't change Charizard. You still had Charizard. That's what Pokemon did. And that was great. But
Yeah.
Luke Skywalker, what he was throughout those 3 movies, everything that he went through,
Mhm.
he would never abandon his friends. And like a lot of people wanted Luke Skywalker in this movie to be just super overpowered, amazing, and just destroying everything in his way, and just being
that would've been
basically
cool,
God.
but I didn't do it.
That's what a lot of people want, because that's what Luke Skywalker has been in the comics and the expanded universe, etc. But instead of like going a different direction, they just completely changed him, because the whole thing about going through all those movies is that he didn't leave his friends. He wouldn't just just leave everything behind and just hide. It just, I don't know.
Okay, so
I can't keep this short. I legitimately can't keep this short.
You got a very conflicted opinion of the movie because of the thing.
Yeah.
Okay. Gotcha.
It makes me want to die. I don't know what to do.
We'll talk about Luke in a bit, because I definitely want to go there as well. But for right now, kind of take it beat by beat, I guess. For me, I like the movie. I didn't like the movie, and then I liked the movie, and then I don't know. I've seen the movie 3 times now.
wow.
It's taken a lot of time for me to kind of process everything and kind of figure out where I stand with the movie in terms of whether I like it or where I don't like it. And it definitely has some problems that I picked up on the first viewing, and those problems still stand. It's a lot of just general filmmaking problems. There's some editing problems, some like writing problems that I don't like, things like that kind of take me out of it a little bit. Big plot beats that don't make any sense or don't contribute anything. But when it comes to the actual like movie itself and what it does with the Star Wars brand and the lore and everything, and some of the things that it intentionally subverts, and some of the things it kind of throws in your face, I didn't like it on my first viewing. I was kind of lukewarm about it my second viewing, and my third viewing
Lukewarm.
I've kind of, going into it knowing where the story is going to go has made me kind of get past the things I don't like. And that's not to say that they're not there, because there's definitely still there, but I can appreciate the movie a little bit more than I did when I first saw it. So I think it's a very enjoyable bad movie. If I had to rate it, I would give it an enthusiastic 6 out of 10.
I have heard it's better the second time you watch it. I have heard that. I know, and I actually had meant to go. I don't have a car right now because I'm at my parents', but I have been meaning to go watch it again, to kind of, see what people are talking about, see if anything that could have been different, about that movie as a whole. I had a whole argument with my friends last night about what Star Wars means and the moral of the movie and if it holds up. For me, the one thing I will say is that I feel the movie fails as a movie. So not because of my own expectations. I know a lot of people have been claiming that there are some people who, they had their own expectations going into the movie, and this movie changes that, and that's why they don't like it. And it's kind of like framing it as oh, you guys, you want your own thing so much you can't stand it when someone else does something new with it. I don't buy into that argument. Not for why I dislike this movie. I'm sure some people dislike it because of other things, but I don't like this movie because I feel on a storytelling level it fails pretty heavily. So that's been my thing behind it. But
what part of the story like fails for you? Is it that it's not believable, or it feels unnatural? What is the core of this?
On a personal note, I feel like it accomplished very little outside of Rey, Luke, and Kylo.
Why did it not accomplish a lot?
Yeah, basically what I'm saying is that I feel like the story itself, the way the movie is framed and what the movie is leading up to, changes over time. So there's a lot of stuff, and I just ruined the new thing that I put up, so sorry guys. But basically the movie sets up a moral, and it sets up messages it's trying to sell towards the audience, and it sets up character arcs, and it never delivers on any of them. So Rey and especially Luke's character is misaligned, not because of what I want his character to be, but because in the movie his character goes from one thing to another without any explanation.
Right. And that's definitely a big problem too. I think in terms of where the characters are and what they kind of believe at the beginning of the movie and what they believe at the end of the movie. I think Luke is the biggest like example of someone who really doesn't really make a lot of sense in terms of like where his stance is on things. Like you go into this movie because all the trailers sort of advertise this, all the posters sort of advertise this, but you go into the movie thinking this movie is going to be about the Grey Jedi, and I don't necessarily mean the exact like the Grey Jedi from the Legends universe or anything.
Right.
I just mean like the concept of a Grey Jedi, the concept of balance between light and dark, right? That concept is what, yeah, that is what you kind of think this movie is going to be about going into it.
I did not think of that for a second though, but that's just.
I mean, okay, sure. That's what I thought it was going to be about because of the way they were like, they had the book end of the trailer, you know, with like Kylo Ren offering his hand to Rey, you know.
I thought it was just going to be like Rey and Kylo having some weird interaction with each other. That's the only thing I expected seeing from the trailers. You know, you
didn't get that with Luke going like the Jedi need to end.
Yeah, I know, but then he said this is not going to go the way you think, and then I'm like, well, I don't know. It's either it. I thought
intentionally cut the trailer to make it look like Rey was fighting Luke.
I thought Rey was either going to join Kylo or Kylo was going to join Rey.
Right.
I thought it was going to be super predictable. They were kind of like
exactly, but
double crossing me, and then they just did something.
What you're describing is the concept of the gray, like the balance between the challenges between light and dark, the characters flipping between light and dark, having to question where they stand in the universe and what they believe.
Well, the concept of the Grey Jedi is the idea that there is no light and dark to the Force. That there are, that the Force is more than just one side. You can't deny that one part of you. You can't deny you can't deny the light side of you. I mean, if you turn to the dark side, you also can't deny the dark side of you. And embracing both of those is what made you Grey, and that was part of the expanded universe lore. But
and that's what I thought this movie was going to be about, essentially. And the thing is
in the movie. Okay, go on.
My point isn't that the movie didn't do what I thought it was going to do, because I think it actually does tackle this issue a little bit in the movie.
Right.
I was fine with that. I was fine with the way they handle it in the movie. Luke Skywalker, I think, is a character in the movie, the way they portray him. He's a character who's very jaded about the whole Jedi thing. He's very much kind of lost in this place of I don't really believe what I've been taught this whole time because of insert event that happened here at one point or time or another or whatever. He believes that the Jedi need to end. He's gone through the history books and the texts, and he's all like, "Oh, the Jedi were vain. They had vanity. They think the Force is theirs, or they let Darth Sidious rise up throughout their entire rule because they were too vain to notice anything." Right. So he's kind of misplaced, and he's like, the Jedi need to end. But by the end of the movie, he completely flips on that mindset where he's like, I won't be the last Jedi. He's like,
you just spent all this time presenting us with all these logical conclusions and saying, hey, the Jedi weren't all that it was cracked up to be. And I was looking forward to see. Okay, I'm sorry I interrupted, but I just want to get this.
Continue.
One thing I want to say is kind of the whole, as the movie as a whole, and I hate nitpicking at it so much because maybe these aren't even nitpicks, but I did like it, the movie, certain parts of it at least. So, but mostly I just complain because those are more obvious and easier to discuss. But the whole thing about the movie is a lot of people who love the movie say the haters hate it because they don't like change. When I'm over here just going like, throughout that whole movie, all the cool changes I thought that they were teasing, like 2 seconds later, they're like, no, status quo.
That's exactly how I feel too. Oh my gosh, that is exactly what I feel about
it. It's like, what do you mean the haters hate it because there was so much change? Nothing changed.
Yeah, nothing changed. It's like, I'm a Jedi now. Why are you a Jedi though? You spent the entire movie telling us why you didn't think the Jedi should be around.
Exactly.
You're gonna come tell you the Jedi should be around. Come on.
So everything I've been reading so far, everybody's been complaining, oh man, this movie, everybody just hates the fact that they changed so much, all this change. But no, my thing is they didn't commit to the change.
Yeah, exactly.
They did it. They did the change. They did the change that I was hoping that they would do. And they had it, and they did that as a plot point. And then at the end of the movie, they were like, you know what? We're just gonna undo that. Jedi, they're coming back.
Like,
Dark side.
Did you
back.
just forget everything that you spent all this time reading about and logically coming and just like suddenly that's all being thrown out?
And see, the funny thing to me was like, I think this is also exemplified by Kylo Ren as well.
Yeah.
But like
Yes.
they spend like the middle portion of the movie kind of building up this relationship between Kylo Ren and Rey. And by the way, Rey Locanon, haha, told you. Anyway, I know. Anyway, I got my Reylo scene. That's all I care about.
You did get your Reylo scene, and to be fair, I do think upon like I like read again and I saw some clips that were posted online. I do honestly think that's what they're setting up.
Yeah, no,
as a
I
romance.
believe
honestly
it's
do.
a
I didn't initially when it came out of that, but I was like, you know what? Yeah, no, they totally are.
Yeah. Anyway, but they spend like the middle portion of the movie kind of building this relationship between Kylo Ren and Rey, and they're kind of both having it's setting up how they're both conflicted about the side that they're on, right? Kylo clearly is conflicted about being in the dark side. He doesn't kill Leia, he's questioning where the whole thing. Snoke is even like, oh, you killed Han and it didn't make you stronger, it nearly tore you apart or whatever.
For me, what it was is like both these people, both of Kylo and dang it, I don't know if I'm saying the right thing or if I'm saying the relationship name anymore. It's screwing with me. But it's like Rey has this, this figure in Luke, and Kylo has the same thing going on with Snoke. But throughout the movie, they're both becoming increasingly. It's not even so much like, oh, I'm not sure about the side. It's like they're becoming disenchanted with the idea of what they were. Maybe that's the same thing, but they're becoming entirely disenchanted. So then, big fight happens, and at the end, Kylo's all, you know what? Screw it all. It's like light side, dark side. This is all just a mess, and it's like this has been going on for so long. What if it just stopped here? What if it wasn't a thing anymore? And I'm just thinking, man, what if these two just like, you know what?
What if they teamed up?
Screw the rebellion. Screw the New Order. This fight has been going on for forever. Let them just kill each other off. We'll see what the universe is like without both of them.
Right,
exactly.
Right.
That's what I thought.
And it's like, oh man, it's like this would seriously shake things up. This would be a serious change
there. Yeah.
And then Kylo's like, rule the galaxy with me.
He does the freaking pitch. He does the stupid dark side pitch in every movie.
Join me, and together we can rule as
like quo.
To be fair, I legitimately thought he was gonna say, "Join me, and together we can rule the galaxy as husband and wife." And I was like, oh, "He's gonna do it. He's gonna say it." He doesn't. He just says, "We'll do it together." But I was like, he's like in his head. He was like, "Should I
I think it's funny that this movie brought up all the issues, but then didn't have an answer to it. It went right back to where we were at the start. It went right back to Kylo Ren being dark side, Rey being light side, Jedi are coming back, Sith are still Sith. It was like status quo maintained. All the changes that they brought up, all the conflicts that these characters had, there was no resolution to them. Went right back to where they were.
And just in the frame of the movie, in the context of the movie, Luke should not come to the conclusion that the Jedi need to come back at the end of that movie. Nothing he has heard.
It doesn't make any sense at all.
It
doesn't make any sense.
Reimagining of the Jedi with less of the hoity-toity, goody two-shoes, we are holier than thou thing.
I mean, it is like a metaphor for like how
it doesn't even have to be like
any religion. The idea is that like things get tacked onto it over time. Things are cultural, things that don't actually make sense to tune in the Force. Like the Jedi couldn't marry, right? They couldn't love anybody. They can do, and that's what led to Anakin turning. Yeah,
Anakin turning. Yeah,
that was a thing that was not part of the
light side was so.
Yeah.
Like the dogma behind the light side being
they were dogmatic,
anti-emotion. It was what turned Anakin into Darth Vader.
But
that's what I don't know. I think it ruins the progression of where Luke is, and again, just in the movie. I know people are like they're talking about they feel like Luke Skywalker shouldn't change. I can accept that in the 20-year period he's had a change of heart and a change of mind. Since the last movies came out, there's been 20-some years. I can accept that. In this actual the 2.5 hours we saw from Luke, his character progression doesn't make any sense at all. It's solid.
There's zero reason. At the end of the movie, during that final fight, he is under the belief that Yoda just destroyed the Jedi text and said it doesn't matter.
Yeah, exactly.
it doesn't make
he
any
has no
sense
idea.
for him to be like,
No,
oh
he-
yeah, we're bringing the Jedi back now,
He
baby.
dies honestly not knowing that the Jedi are back, or that the Jedi
Exactly.
texts are still around. He's just kind of like, all right.
Yeah.
But Bard, you felt
What
at the end of the movie that nothing had changed.
Okay, well, not necessarily. No, that's
Yeah,
not. That's
I
not what I
wouldn't
mean.
say
Not
I,
that
like,
nothing
okay.
changed, but
It's not
the
that
overall
nothing
status
changed.
quo.
It's
But-
it's just that the overarching branching themes of Star Wars, the good versus evil story that we're so used to, that we got every other movie, we are still getting. Everybody like this is kind of a response to the people saying that the reason people hate this movie is because they hate change. That's not the case, or at least not for everybody. For me particularly, I felt that at the end of the movie, the things that could have been changed weren't changed. The things that they touched
Right.
upon or considering changing, they went right
It's
back
not like
on.
preconceived changes that we were going in there and we're upset that our head canons got messed up either.
It's
Yeah,
things
these
they
are
set
all-
up in the movie.
It's things they introduced us to, and I'm like, oh wait, yeah, that would be
Yeah.
so cool. That would
Right,
be like
exactly.
that would be risky.
And like it goes like Luke Skywalker, it literally is like, I'm going to give you 3 lessons, and then I'm going to tell you why the Jedi need to end.
Right.
And we never learn why the Jedi need to end. He
Not only
never
that, I don't
actually
think
tells
we get
us.
3 lessons. I'm pretty sure
We only
don't
got 2
even-
lessons.
You only get 2
Actually,
lessons.
I don't even know if we got 2.
We get 1.
Lesson 3, he comes back as a ghost and
No,
teaches
okay.
her.
I'm pretty sure the first one is like where he shows Rey how to feel more. He's like, just
Yeah.
reach out with your feelings, and then she's like, oh. And then the second one is where he takes her to the and he takes her and shows her the Jedi text. I think is the second one. The third one we don't get because before that she's like he stumbles in. He's like I was joking like he's like the dad, you know, like, and he's like he checks in on his daughter. He knocks in her room and she sees her boyfriend in there and he's like, what is he doing here? And he's like super mad about it. That's exactly the scene that happens, and then they leave and that's it. That's gone. Or they're dead.
Yeah. So it's like, yeah, I feel like, and the problem is another thing about the change thing too is
Yeah.
that the movie does change things. The problem that I have with it though is that the changes that it does make aren't changes to what Star Wars is as a franchise. It's
Right.
superficial changes. It's
Right.
changes that are really silly, like things that The Force Awakens set up. That this movie was like, you know what? I don't really like that idea. Let's do this instead. It's like, okay,
Or like yeah,
like
they-
an
they-
emperor character, right? Cool. We
Right.
can change that. Our trilogy won't have an emperor character by killing off Snoke. Okay, but what does that really change?
Kylo just basically
It
replaced
makes
him.
so that
Kylo is just the bad guy now.
I know, but like it's very like I'm very hyped for like I'm excited for the last episode because I think that is going to be a very different movie because I do
I hope
genuinely
so.
think
I
that
hope
at
so,
the
too.
very end of this movie, everything has very much changed and it's a very cool take on the Star Wars universe because right now, what you have is that what you essentially had before is that you had a supreme force, the Empire, being the supreme force in the universe, but instead of being behind a tactical mastermind and just warmongers, you have a unstable teenage. No, he's not really a teenager, but you have an unstable guy with a lot of power that can just do just about anything, and I think that
Right.
is very different. And then on the other side, and I'm still not a big fan of the whole like there's a new empire, then there's the new rebels, but they're called the resistance now,
Yeah,
but
we'll talk about that in a second.
I'm at the point where I'm just looking at the very few things that I like, and I'm just like, I'll take that, I guess,
Right.
The Luke thing was more directed to like my other friends. I do actually genuinely like the story just because I find
Yeah, I like
it
the story, too.
interesting. But
I just don't like that the characters flip flopped. Personally, I just
Yeah,
think-
the
I don't
characters
like
a bit
that
over the
nothing
place.
happened in terms of the thing is that like in this movie about 2 characters get a character arc. Poe gets a character arc. He gets a legitimate character arc throughout this entire movie, and he's the one that's the clearest. Kylo is the next clearest, kind of. He does
Kind of.
change, but it's subtle, so you don't really know, and you won't see the results of it to the next movie. But I can accept that. I can accept they're
Right.
Can we-
setting up a change
Can we
for the next
talk
movie.
about Poe for a second? About how he was
How he murdered all like half the resistance.
and he got a slap on the back or something. He's just like, no, you
mean
don't
a
do
slap
that
on the
again.
wrist?
Right.
And
Slap
then
on the
he
wrist.
slap on the wrist, whatever you.
I
guys
actually,
call it.
I don't. The reason why I didn't mind that as much is because I think Holdo is the greatest idiot to ever be in charge of a starship in the Star Wars universe.
Oh, yeah.
She is completely and utterly the greatest. Like, I was so frustrated with her this
Why
entire
would she
movie.
not tell a single person
I
about
don't
her
know.
plan?
I don't know.
Yeah, okay,
I have
listen,
no
Who
idea.
is worse? Who is worse, her or Jar Jar?
Jar
Jar
Jar's
Jar is always going to be worse.
Jar Jar's
Yeah.
not entertaining. Jar Jar's not entertaining to watch. That's the
Holdo
issue.
at least led to some really, really good scenes.
Yeah.
I was
Holdo
gonna
went to
s-
one really good scene.
Here's
Just
the thing.
I was gonna say, in all this negativity, maybe we can hold off for a second. We still got stuff to say, but there is a positive thing I think we can all talk about.
This movie is beautiful, and
it's
that
pretty
Holdo
gorgeous.
scene where she sacrifices herself is one of the greatest things
The
I
That
ever
Possibly the
Speed
best.
Kamikaze.
That was
Possibly
insane.
the best, right?
That was amazing.
Just
I
beautiful.
loved that scene. I've seen it 3 times. Each time I was blown away by it.
And then, like everyone.
The way
Oh,
You know
they
who else
do
was
it,
blown
too.
away? First Order, son.
Oh, dude, the way they just
they
yeah
just cut the sound.
they cut the
they
sound.
cut the
it was
sound.
beautiful.
They could have
The
ever
So
made.
light.
good.
It's like it's all blackness, and then there's like the gray of the ship, and then just the pure blue light of the ship going through
Streak
hyperspace.
through the sky.
It was so good.
Yeah.
You know, there's
So-
people out there that argue whether or not that is possible, and it's just like, you know, you're
It doesn't-
debating whether or not spaceships.
No,
that
yeah,
can
the one
right,
go
thing,
like,
through-
yeah,
Listen,
I don't
guys,
think
it doesn't
crap.
matter whether it's possible
doesn't
It
or not.
matter.
does not matter.
the
it
one
looks
thing it
so
does
cool.
though.
Get over
The
it.
one thing it does like bring into question is why like they didn't just send those ships through the Death Star. You know, they just make a ton of like empty giant.
Because the
metal
Death
husks
Star
and
is
stuff.
like 30 times larger than Snoke's ship is. It would take
Yeah, no, I
like,
mean, like, you just-
a
you
whole
take a
fleet
ton
of
of
ships
ships.
just kamikazing into it to maybe blow it up.
I mean, that's what
Okay,
they
you-
eventually did.
For real though, coming out of the movie and thinking about that scene, the thing that crosses my mind is okay. What we have here is an attack done with light speed. How long until we see what are essentially the Star Wars equivalent of ICBMs that go light speed?
Yeah, right. That's what I was thinking. It's like you would think that would be
Like,
a course of
Just
warfare,
freaking light
basically, like
speed
giant,
nukes.
or just like send a missile and
Or
send it
just
through
have
light speed.
It doesn't even have to explode. Just a giant chunk of metal shot light speed right into a planet.
Yep.
Punch a hole in it.
Yeah.
Oh, dude, through a planet that would wreck stuff.
Just
That's
pow!
That
that would
yeah,
have been.
that was a really cool scene. But now that we've gushed about that a little bit, let's talk about Holdo
Let's
a bit
go-
more.
let's
'cause-
go back to
Before you,
negativity.
before you go into that, though, before you
Okay.
go into that, we were talking about like the scale of like the Death Star
The Death
and
Star,
and Snoke's ship, right? Do you know how big the Supremacy is? Like it is. Like I'm gonna post this comparison picture here. Those smallest triangles that you see on that picture, those are Imperial Death Stars. Like that ship is insanely huge. I have not seen
Oh,
a
yeah.
comparison next to the Death Star or Death Star 2,
Mm.
but I don't think they're very far off,
Interesting.
to say the least. Because
Interesting.
you look, because they've gone pretty insane. Like that's kind of like the overarching theme here.
I'm gonna
if
see
not
if I
the
can
only
put
one,
this
is
up on
that
the-
they're
on
just
the
kind of
screen for a
like
second.
put
So
some.
roughly 40 miles across.
Yeah, can we
crust.
math this? Can we quick maths?
I'm just gonna,
I
I'm
like-
gonna eyeball it real quick.
I,
I'm gonna
I
see
like
big
how the Imperial ship was measured in Imperial units.
Got him.
Okay, Super Star Destroyer. Yeah, wow. You might be right. The Death Star might actually be smaller than the Supremacy.
That's interesting. Well, I
as
mean,
far
we
as,
do
like,
know that like
wingspan anyway.
the wingspan and stuff. We also do know
Yeah.
that like
Not mass.
additionally they were like scaling stuff a lot bigger. Starkiller Base is like the size. You know, we saw that comparison. Like this is the Death Star. This is the Death Star 2. This is Starkiller Base. It's like 40 billion times bigger.
Mm.
So
Like, do you think that they
Yeah.
have literally like a highway that goes from wingtip to wingtip and going at like 60 miles an hour takes you half an hour to cross? This
that
entire
is
thing?
okay. That is something that
That's
I
a
wanted
good
to see with these
question.
new movies that like we never really get to see. I want to see like what the like we always see like the corridors and all the soldiers walking around. But what does the cafeteria look like, right? What do the showers look like? What's like a
what is
what's
the
a bunk
life
and, like,
style? Of
what is
some of the
life on the
Life
giant
on the
freaking-
Death Star.
Yeah, what is that? You would think that there would be something.
We
that
did
would be,
get one
pretty
cool scene that was kind of played for last, but I actually thought it was pretty neat. Is like when the dry cleaning thing for like the suits, like there was like
Yeah.
like
It was
the
like-
room with the outfits and
A
stuff.
lot
That
of
was
people
cool.
are just like, oh, this is like a very stupid joke. I felt that was,
I thought that was a really cool scene.
the clothes need to be washed or
yeah.
like taken care of.
I
They
actually
always
thought that
look
was-
very sleek.
Well, that should
you
be,
know?
It
that
was
should be
cool
what we
getting
do
a
with
little bit more insight into what they're.
that's what we should see with
life's
Finn.
like.
That's what Finn should be a bit more of like the voice of the First Order, or kind of like going more into that instead of just being whatever he is right now. Question mark.
I feel like he should
Um,
definitely be the person that the audience relates to most.
Who? Finn?
Finn, yeah.
All right.
So
I wanna-
everyone
he
should
doesn't-
sacrifice themselves?
No. I'm just
or-
saying, Rey has powers. She's a Jedi. Luke is a legend. Leia's a I just feel like if there's anyone who's supposed to be like as close to the same level as the audience is, it should
It'd be Finn. Yeah.
Okay. Real quick, I want to
It's
address something
interesting
that.
because like these writers just do not know how to work with Finn either.
Yeah,
But anyway.
it's clear they don't. Paranic Films in the YouTube chat was talking about Holdo not telling Poe anything because Poe wants to win and not survive. And he's thinking about saving the resistance. Or he's not saving about saving the resistance. He's just thinking of defeating the First Order. I will counter that by saying that Holdo doesn't actually tell anybody her plan. One, it's not just
Yeah.
Poe. I
just
could
Poe.
I could understand why after the first scene where Poe kind of confronts her, she doesn't tell him her plan right then. But that being said, Holdo withholds information from everyone on the ship to the point where the reason people side with Poe and the mutiny is because they also feel that Holdo isn't telling them anything and that they're going to their deaths.
They're all going to die.
Yeah.
Here's it like Holdo has done it to the point where everybody in the resistance thinks that they are just going to their deaths
Yeah.
and are willing to mutiny against her to stop that from happening.
right. She has
once
not
the
done anything to
mutiny
establish
happened-
trust.
Once
Poe
the
was
mutiny-
not punished whatsoever for mutiny, by the way.
He's not. Yeah, it's true. But like
Just-
once the mutiny happens, that is the point in which Holdo could be like, okay, listen, guys, I'm sorry, we do have a plan. You're going to be safe. Calm down and trust us.
Yeah, it's like,
She
all right,
doesn't
stand
even-
down,
she
Commander.
doesn't
You're
even
demoted to the
do-
brig.
Yeah, she doesn't even need to tell them the plan. She just needs to be like, guys, don't worry, we do have a plan. You're going to be fine. She doesn't even say that.
The stupid thing
It feels
about this
kind of
is that, like,
kind of like a forced conflict.
yeah,
It is,
exactly.
and that's the
That's the
problem.
reason why I hate
that's
it so
why
much.
it's a problem. It's because
Right.
it is a forced conflict. It's a conflict that doesn't need to happen, and because of this conflict, we are treated to half of a movie that doesn't need to take place at all. We're
Yep.
the Canto
And it-
Bright. The Canto Bright. Is it Bright Blight? Canto
Who
Blight.
knows? Who
Kanto,
cares?
right. I don't know.
Canto Bite? I think it's Bite. Yeah,
Right.
it's Bite. Okay. The Canto Bite segment doesn't need to happen at all. It doesn't contribute to anything. It's really pointless. It's really stupid. It's really prequely. But not only does it lead to nowhere, but it doesn't need to happen at all because if
Right.
Holdo just told people, no one would have gone off doing their own thing to begin with.
You can't have your conflict between two protagonists be a miscommunication. You can't have like that. That's why people
It wasn't even
dislike-
miscommunication. It was just deliberate
with
non-communication.
non-communication. It's like a
Pointless.
Batman v Superman. Like Superman just has to say, "Oh, hey, he kidnapped my mom," and then suddenly everything's Then you can go from there. He doesn't, and that's why they fight. And it's like a thing where you're like, "Okay, just say this, and then everything's good."
Yeah. And it is the crux. It's the core conflict in this entire movie. It literally sets everything in motion. And
Ugh.
that's why it's so egregious that it could be solved so simply.
Here's a solution. to
Every
that.
plot point of this movie relies on this conflict to happen.
Here's a solution to that, which is like I feel like would have made the conflict the story the screenwriters wanted to have. If this was Leia's last command, where she was like, just evacuate everyone in transport ships once we reach X location, or even just like she was like, just get everyone out on the transports and and jettison. And then she like passed out, right? And they can't do anything with her. And Holdo's like, all right, well, I'm gonna follow the chain of command. Our general said we're supposed to do this, and I'm gonna follow her no matter what. And then Poe's like, actually, what if we don't do that? And I think that's kind of crazy, and I'm gonna do my own thing. That is two ideological things, where Holdo is following the chain of command, and Poe is not. Poe is wanting to forsake
Because
the
of
chain
his
of command and do his own
character.
thing because of
Exactly.
his character. And now you have two characters clashing on ideological difference, which makes sense and doesn't have this whole
And they're
stupid thing
fundamental to
going
their
on.
characters, and it's
yeah,
not just
exactly.
a stupid thing.
Right.
Exactly.
And when Poe learns his lesson, then you say, okay, you have to learn to follow the chain of command. You can't just go doing your own thing. That works. But they don't. They have Holdo be stupid because the plot needs her to be stupid.
It's like, and the worst thing is that the plan is perfect, right? Like, Holdo's plan is perfect. It's going to get everybody to safety. It's going to work fine. If everybody just pays attention to it, there's no conflict in this movie.
Right.
And that's the problem. There's
you just
no
told
reason for her
people.
to withhold that.
Just tell people, no, I know what I'm doing. We are not going to die. Just say that. We are not going And
Yeah,
also,
exactly.
let's also I want to clear up this thing that I hear people say all the time. People are like, "Oh, Holdo probably thought they were spies on the ship." Okay, this is what happens, okay? The moment she says, "Everyone get onto transport ships." If there's a spy, the spy goes, "First order, everyone's getting on transport ships." And then they scan them and blow them up like they do in the actual movie. So there is no reason to
change.
there's
no
nothing
change, yeah.
there's no reason to withhold that information, because the moment the spy finds out that they're doing that, they're just gonna
They're
he can
doomed.
even-
If there's a spy on
Yeah.
board, they're doomed.
they're
So
already on the
there's no
transport ships.
point. There's no point in withholding it.
Yeah. Anyhow,
So yeah, it's really stupid. It's a scene that it's a fundamental flaw in the script that I think really withholds it. It's
That
it's
whole part
weird.
of that whole part of the movie, like outside of Kylo, Rey, and Luke, and the other thing that they got going on, the whole rest of the movie just felt like something they put in just so the rest of the
Right.
characters would have something to do.
that's what it is.
Oh, you
honestly.
know what? Talking about status quo, by the way, the whole status quo complaint. They treat Holdo as though she is a bad guy for the majority of the movie, right? They treat her like maybe that she's got ulterior motives, or that she might be like trying to, I don't know, destroy the resistance from within
yeah,
or
right.
I
something.
didn't get that vibe.
Well, I don't know. They treat her like, I don't know. She's
She's not
obviously an
necessarily a bad
antagonist.
guy, but she's an antagonist. Yeah.
Yeah, like there's obviously a thing there. But then at the very end, it's like, oh wait, no, never mind. She was just a hero the entire time. Just
Yeah, right.
good guy.
Yeah, just get
Like,
yeah, right.
like light side prevails. Woohoo! Sacrifice yourself, be the hero.
And the worst thing about it all is that they spent so much time on this character and we don't get anything about it. When the one character that's surviving at the end of his trilogy, the one person from the original trilogy that's still around, is the person who can't appear in any more movies. Why wasn't Leia the one on that ship? That would have been a great end to her character. That would have been like tied everything back
I
in.
think it would have been a
They
good
could have
send-off.
recut it.
Yeah.
It would have been a great send off, and then like we could actually have Holdo and have that conflict or whatever, however that's carried on, being the next
Translate
movie.
into the next movie.
Exactly. Now we
Honestly,
don't.
I wouldn't have minded if she had died after being
Akbar!
blown out by those TIE fighters. Like Kylo resists and someone else blows him up. I feel like that would have had a little bit more punch to it. It's like, oh, I had a chance to. I decided
sure.
not to. But then she was just basically shot down in cold blood.
I wouldn't
by
have
people
minded
who
that
had
either.
no relationship to her.
It would have saved this
It was just
stupid thing of her
emotionless.
coming back as Superman.
It was
Mary
just like that was
Poppins
such
is,
a
like,
good.
back into the thing.
It was such a awesome, cool, emotional moment that should have been given to a character we actually care about,
Right.
not Holdo. So like
No.
even Akbar, I think, could have been the one on that ship who said,
Oh, if it was
That probably
Akbar,
would have been best.
That would have been
line.
amazing.
that
wouldn't
would
it?
have been amazing, dude. I would have like. Can you imagine people would all the memes and Twitter things right now be like Admiral Akbar forever. I stand of Akbar. That'd be great.
Yeah, but I mean, this movie definitely has a problem, and it's up for debate whether you like it or not. But I think Rian Johnson had a very intentional ideology when he wrote the script for this movie, that he wanted to take. I think the meta commentary is that he wants to take the movie away from fanboy culture, right? That's kind of what I got out of the way he wrote this movie, because he intentionally puts in these things that are very clearly directed at misdirecting your
Right.
core audience, which is the Star Wars fans, right? Very clearly kind of subverting expectations from Star Wars fans, like going out of his way to like change things around that you would expect out of a Star Wars movie. And I think it's kind of this thing where he's like actively dodging theories.
He went
The
out of
funny
his
thing
way
is
to try to
or
make sure
how
that
do you
people couldn't guess what was going on in that movie. I think like that was part of that's why I took out of it. Like he would go any lengths to make sure that people couldn't guess what was going to happen in this movie.
Yeah. What were you
Bar,
saying,
how do you feel about like the fact this movie greenlit for this director from Disney that he was going to make a brand new trilogy with his own characters?
I think it's fine, honestly.
No,
I think
I think.
Do you
I'm
think
actually
he's
worried
probably
about
going to
it.
do better there?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
I'm worried about it because I think that like at this moment, Rian Johnson is about a step or two above Zack Snyder for me, where it's all
No, I don't. I don't
all
think so.
prettiness and it's all just for shock value. I want to surprise the audience. I just want to do anything to get my.
No, I
happy
The only
definitely
thing
disagree
that's
there. I
the
definitely
only
disagree.
thing that surprised and shocked me was the stuff that he set up and didn't do. Oh,
Yeah.
great! Oh, look, these two are gonna say screw them both, and we're just gonna do our own thing. Nope.
Yeah, and
That's the only thing he subverted was the things that he set up himself 5 seconds earlier.
I hope he surprises me. but-
When I first saw the movie, I definitely felt like it was a very superficial movie with no actual meaning or anything real thought put into it. It was all just fluff for show and shock. Upon seeing it multiple times, upon analyzing it, upon listening to a ton of different reviews, I do not think that's the case at all. I think Rian Johnson had a very, very clear message that he wanted to send and a goal that he had in mind. And I think it's there, and I think it's subjective whether you like it or not. I think that's fair. But I think he did have intention there. And to me, that's far beyond anything Zack Snyder's ever done. Zack Snyder truly is just for show. It truly is. He doesn't have any
fair
message.
enough,
He doesn't have
fair
any
enough.
thought going.
He's.
With that said-
I'll agree he's a step
with that
above,
said-
but like.
I think they need to take away the writing credit away from Rian Johnson. I don't think he needs to write the movies. I think he's an excellent director. I think this movie is incredibly well directed. I think for me,
100%.
all the problems that I have with this movie are all fundamental. They're all the script. It's all the writing that went into it that I don't like.
Right.
Everything else is great. So for me, I think the problem really lies that it was Rian Johnson. He was given free will to like write the whole script. No one else is credited on it. He's all by himself. If you look at The Force Awakens, they had like 3 writers on it, 2 writers. It was J.J. Abrams and someone else. I feel like maybe they needed someone to be like, all right, well, let's try not to deviate too far. Let's try to make sure this still kind of, stays, there's an arc here. Let's not just subvert that at the end of the movie, So
Yeah.
I don't know.
And they also need someone. From what I was reading is that he wrote this movie. He was talking about how when he wrote who Rey's parents could be, he made a whole list of all the people her parents could be and chose the one that would be, in his words, the most devastating to her, which to me shows that they don't know what they're doing when it comes to these movies. They wrote the first one and they're just like, we'll let the second director figure it out. And then Rian wrote this one. He's like, I'll let JJ figure it out. Or Colin Trevorrow, who's now been replaced by JJ, figure it out.
You don't
And it was
like
like
Rey's
a-
backstory?
No, it's not I don't like it. What I'm saying is that they didn't have it in mind when they started
They
writing.
didn't have
the
an
first one.
intention.
Let's mention Ray here because
Let's
John,
talk about-
we
okay.
we talked about
We
this
did talk
and
about Rey.
we made a funny discovery.
Yeah,
about this movie.
I think okay. So I had this problem initially when it came out of the movie. It's not that I dislike that Rey's parents aren't someone important. I don't mind that at all. The problem is when Kylo says that to her, he's saying that to the audience, not to her character. Rey's character shouldn't care if her parents are anything or nothing
Right.
at all.
Because here's the thing: if we go off the logic of the Force Awakens, right?
Right.
The problem that Rey has in the Force Awakens is that she wants her parents to come home. She was abandoned as a kid. She was left in care of this slave
Slaver,
owner,
yeah.
seller guy, and her parents disappeared randomly, mysteriously. We don't know what happened to them, and she wants them to come home. That's why she has her hair tied up like she was as a kid, so that her parents would recognize her. That's why
Right.
she's so adamant about staying on Jakku and going back to Jakku and turning down any offers from anyone else to leave because she wants her parents to come home. Her problem in The Force Awakens is not that she doesn't know who her parents are.
Right.
That
We don't
wasn't
know.
her issue.
The
The audience doesn't know. She knows who her parents are. Her problem was that her parents didn't come home. It was never about being special. The Last Jedi sets up her character as though she doesn't know who her parents are. She wants to be special in the universe, right? That's her problem in The Last Jedi, but that's not her problem in The Force Awakens. So they actually changed her character. Essentially, they retconned her character from the Force
you
Awakens.
Are you sure though? Like, is there any? What's the proof
Okay.
that like Rey knew who her parents were?
Okay,
well,
for
the
one
biggest
thing,
is
she
that,
says
like,
it in this movie. She
Yeah.
knows who they are. Kylo asked her who her parents are, and she says it, so she knows who they are.
Yeah, but is that like? Does she like might have discovered that through
No,
that
no,
movie?
she knows
No?
that. The point that the Last Jedi is saying is that she's trying to avoid that answer. She's looking for something else. She wants something alternative because she wants to be special.
Right.
She wants to have some kind of tie to the universe.
Well,
that's
she
grander.
already is special. She's super overpowered and knows how to do the lightsaber out of nowhere and can
Exactly.
fight Luke
That's
for no reason.
That's it. They retconned that. That's why her character is this way in this movie. They changed it because in The Force Awakens that wasn't her problem. In the Force Awakens, it's the exact opposite. She doesn't want to be special. She wants to be on Jakku with her parents.
She wants
That's
to be.
why
She wants to have a normal life.
She wants to have a normal life. Exactly.
She
That's why she
turns
turns
down
down
a
Han
seat.
Solo.
Yeah, she turns out like if she wanted
she-
to be
every
important, she would have
chance-
gone with the Millennium Falcon of Han and Chewie and gone around
Exactly.
doing adventures in space and doing all that. But she decides, no, I'm going to turn down this life of adventure to go back home because the thing I want most is for my family to find me and have a normal life with my parents. That's what she wants in the Force
Every
Awakens.
opportunity she gets to be special in The Force Awakens, she actively turns down.
Right.
The lightsaber, her destiny, her mystical like Jedi powers, a trip with Han Solo, having a job, leaving Jakku, going on adventures with Finn, all of these things, joining the Resistance. All of these things are offered to her and she rejects every single one because all she wants is for her parents to come home and live with her on Jakku. She doesn't want to be special. They completely turn that around in this movie. It's the exact opposite in this movie. She wants to be special, and because of that, she's rejecting her past and looking for answers about who she is, hoping to find something that isn't there.
And that is why, well, I mean, that was the biggest reason why I felt that, like, Rian Johnson was writing this as, almost like a screw you to fans, because that's what that line is. When Kylo Ren says, you know who your parents are, they were nobody. And because Rey reacts to that as if, it's a huge revelation to her, or that's something she's been trying to avoid, he writes this character as the character we, the audience, are looking towards. As, like, we are wondering, is she connected to Obi-Wan? Is she the son of, is she Luke's daughter? Is she like all this? If she's Han and Leia's daughter? We, the audience, have built up this entire thing, and as if to say, all right, hey, your thing doesn't matter. He writes Rey this way. He writes Kylo this way, and he has this specific line that goes against the character that we've been seeing throughout this trilogy. Rey should not care who her parents are. That doesn't matter to her. She just wants them to be there for her. She wants them to take her to soccer practice on the, in the desert or whatever. She wants to have that family. She doesn't care if they're important or if they're, if they're nobodies, if they're anything, as long as they're there. The problem is when they write that, they take that away from her. And so the idea is, I also like to when I'm thinking about like what Rian Johnson will do with this new trilogy, tying back to what you were saying, X. I hope he'll do something. I hope that he won't feel like he has to go against audience expectations. That he'll have to write the thing. That being said,
I just want something new.
in Breaking Bad, in Breaking Bad, like he was a great director in Breaking Bad too, and now that's why I was excited for him. But he isn't the best writer. He didn't write those episodes of Breaking Bad. I think Vince Gilligan wrote those, or they had other people writing the scripts of him. And I think if he is just given a bit of cleanup with the plot and everything, then he can actually make it. But what he did with this movie, I feel, and because this movie is not planned, it's not a planned part in the trilogy, because the movies are made up essentially as they go along, that's why I think this movie is bad. And even if J.J. Abrams fixes it, quote unquote, in the 9th movie, that will be his reaction to how bad this movie was. It won't be, this is part of the ongoing plan they have for all 3 movies. This is part of the, this is just a misstep that they're going to have to correct. Like The Last Stand, they had to do Days of Future Past to retcon The Last Stand, essentially.
That's a whole other can of worms, though.
Yeah, I'm sorry for bringing that up.
So
it's not as
just
bad,
like,
but like...
It's interesting, though, because, Rey's character is very different in this movie. I think it's in response to her being a very lackluster character in the last movie, so they obviously kind of retconned that and changed it.
She
still feels
character.
very empty for me.
Yeah.
Like she just
I totally
feels
get it.
like she needs to be there.
Well, because she has no
Just
arc.
to be a character. I don't know.
She's
That's
not
it,
learning
yeah.
anything. She hasn't progressed because we were given a character in the one movie and then a different character in another movie, and neither character has had a chance to grow at all.
I don't actually. I feel like I haven't actually given her much thought, because everything you're saying right now about like being a different character from movie to movie. Because I've only thought of her as just Mary Sue, because she knows how. She knows mechanics.
The new
she knows
female
the
lead
climb.
Jedi.
Right, no, I get
she
that,
knows all
honestly.
these things.
Well, I
And
didn't.
that's it.
I said no at the first movie. When the first movie came out, I said, well, even though she might kind of be a bit of a Mary Sue in this movie, so was
Yeah.
Luke in this first movie as well. And I was like, you know what? I understand because Luke's character arc is over 3 movies. His main struggle happens in the 5th movie where he's
Yeah,
training
but
with
he
Yoda
didn't
and he
start
abandons.
with all those abilities.
Well,
Wow.
he did
kinda
start with the.
did.
Well,
yeah.
he did start with a
He was
lot.
a
I mean,
star
it is
pilot.
Star Wars
Yeah. He
to
was,
like an extent. Everyone is a Mary Sue, you know.
Right. No, I'm not
It
like
is-
defending everything. I'm saying that like there are things. This is part of the reason why I also dislike this movie. There are things I forgave about The Force Awakens because I understood it's gonna be the first part of a trilogy. Now that I see where things have ended up with this movie, I now like The Force Awakens a lot less. I forgave the existence of Snoke. I thought a second Emperor character was dumb, but I thought, you know what? I'm going to see what they do with this character because they might end
I
up
thought it
surprising me.
was
They have
dumb
a better
that it was
plan
just
for him.
used as a big red herring, and I'm
Yeah,
really
exactly.
unsatisfied
Exactly.
that we just don't. Because I went into this movie like I didn't care much about Rey, and I thought I had something in mind. What I thought about Kylo Ren, what Finn was gonna do, but I was really intrigued, and I was really wondering what this guy Snoke came from, because he has been in the background of Darth Sidious, Darth Vader, and he knows all these things that's gone through all these years, and I don't know. I think we're expected to just get so much closure these days with just knowing everything,
Yeah.
but not knowing anything about him.
Well,
That
because
just felt
the
very
movie-
unsatisfying.
The movie writes him as being super important. That's the issue for me. Is not so much that like I'm expecting him to be important.
Yeah,
just because I want him to fit the Emperor role. Like
A lot of it is done
yeah.
just to do something different
Well,
rather than doing
okay,
something.
so Phasma, we talked a bit about Phasma. Phasma is a character that is fully on the audience as in terms of their and I admit that with me as well. I was disappointed with Phasma. I also can accept that the movie never presented Phasma as being that important. I did. Because I saw the marketing and I saw the things and the action figures.
But I
and I thought she would be.
I feel like
more
those
important
things
character.
are there though, because she looks like an Imperial Boba Fett, basically. Like
Yeah,
in terms
no,
of
I-
that, she
Yeah,
fit
even
the
But like,
stature and everything.
she's never presented in this story as a character with meaning. Her design is really cool, and that's the thing of Boba Fett too. If you watch Star Wars again, Boba Fett doesn't really have that much importance to the story at all. He's just a character that looks really
mean,
cool, and the character's really the fans.
I would
really
even
like him.
argue that Phasma's appearance would be more conducive to saying, "Hey, this character's special," than Boba Fett's. I don't feel
Yeah,
like
no,
Boba
I mean,
Fett
okay,
looks
well,
all that
what I'm saying
important,
is that,
but Phasma, literally, no other stormtrooper has had chrome armor.
Yeah, it just
Yeah,
it seems like she
sure.
is a character of status, and like they didn't do much with her, but like everything about her just shows like
Yeah.
elite, and that she has a lot of stuff that she can do, and it's just like, why does she have a name and why does she have dialogue? Like if you think about The Force Awakens and this movie, and you replace Captain Phasma with just another stormtrooper, but he has like a shoulder pad that makes him look more important, and he
Mhm.
never says anything. Will it be like a lot more different? You know,
No,
because
it
like
wouldn't.
if Finn just sees this guy and it becomes his rival, and then he eventually dies, like would it be more satisfactory then? Because then there wasn't so much to him, and then you didn't expect so much of that enemy. Do I make sense here?
Yeah, no, I think so. But like, I guess what I'm getting at is that like, if you're looking at just how these characters are presented in this story, the design, again, I agree with you. The design is cool, and it was
Yeah,
a
the
bit
design
misleading.
definitely gives Phasma a level of
Yeah,
Yeah,
that,
I
it's very
totally
much
agree
the
with you.
design here.
But
in
the-
terms of her character, though, the fact that you're going out of your way to say like she could have just been replaced with any other stormtrooper, it would have made no difference. I think it leads credence to what John's trying to say is that like
right.
the character in the story isn't actually important. The only reason that we think she's important is because of all the marketing and the way she looks. The
But
story
and
isn't.
the trailer, I
Yeah.
don't know.
But that's part of the marketing. But the movie itself, the movie that we got, doesn't actually set Phasma up to be that important. So
yeah, no, nothing she does.
Yeah, she
And why
doesn't
did they?
do
Why didn't they
anything.
just? Why did they just off her when they had the chance? Why did they just have to throw her in the trash compactor?
I don't know.
I don't
It
know.
doesn't really
That was
make a lot-
stupid.
It doesn't make a lot of
Here's-
sense. It's really silly, but the
Well-
story itself doesn't really make her
Yeah.
that important.
I
Snoke,
see
on
that
the
point.
other-
Snoke
Here's
is
the
a
thing.
different thing.
Snoke is very different though. Yeah. Go ahead, Chikima.
Well, I was just gonna say regarding Phasma, it's my understanding. I can't speak from personal experience, but my understanding that like some of the comics and other media that came out actually did put quite a bit into Phasma's character. In which case, Sure.
And they also put Grimoire
No,
into Destiny.
No, I don't. I
Yeah.
don't.
Yeah, here's the thing. Books don't. I don't care about books.
Well, that's what I'm saying is, okay, if that's true, sure, great. That makes her a great character in that media. But in
Yeah.
that case, she should not be in. You shouldn't put the introduction and the finality of that character in the movies as if she's a movie character. Like,
Right.
if anything, give her some kind of like cameo in the middle or something. But that can't be your entrance and exit point, and then leave everything else.
Totally. I
Yeah,
think
no,
that's
the
100%.
books. We can't keep treating the books like DLC.
Yeah, right.
we need to get our actual story in
Star
the story
Wars.
itself.
Star
The
Wars
movies
is
are
a-
the story.
Star Wars is
What
a
do you
movie
mean?
franchise, first
Destiny
and
had
foremost.
Grimoire, you know? That worked out
So-
great.
I don't know anything about Destiny, dude.
It was just like
was a joke.
you would read a story in cards.
I got it.
online.
It was a joke. I just didn't
So.
get it.
Yeah, that's how it was in
Um,
Destiny.
But yeah, Snoke is different, and I keep seeing. So I'm seeing a lot of people when I view criticisms and like responses
That
to those
you didn't know
criticisms,
a lot about the Emperor. Is that what you're gonna say?
everybody keeps comparing him to the Emperor.
No. Okay, so let's
And this is
let's
it's a
do that.
really silly counterpoint, I think, because
I
I
think
think
it's
it's
really
really
stupid,
apparent. I think it's really obvious why it matters that Snoke has more story, and it didn't matter that the Emperor did.
I think
But
so
yeah,
as well.
What did you want to say, John?
No, I mean I was just gonna I was gonna point to that thing as well, that like, all right, so when you're establishing the story first, right, you don't need to have everything explained if they're intrinsic parts of the world. We at the beginning of Star Wars, what we do know is that there is an empire and there is a rebellion, and those are things that have been existed for a very long time. There's been this war going on, and there's an empire, and then there is the emperor. And so the reason why we don't need to be introduced to the emperor's backstory, even though we do get it in the prequels. Well, let's remember that we get like tons of movies explaining this thing, but at the intrinsic point, as this world was established, it was established that the emperor has been a long-standing part of this world. He's just part of the thing.
Yeah.
Because it's a sequel, and we're dealing with
Exactly.
we have to introduce all the new things into this. Where has Snoke been this entire time? You can't just get away with that because we know what happened before.
That is the fundamental difference between the
Yeah.
Emperor and Snoke. Is that A New Hope is a starting point.
Right.
This is where the story begins. So we are left with the story as it is, and we get to know the story as it progresses, right? We don't need to know the history of the Emperor because all we need to know is that there is an empire in this world and that this guy is in charge.
Right.
That's the start of the story. But the new trilogy is a sequel, meaning it's adding on to the already established story.
Exactly.
The last movie we left off on, the Empire was destroyed. The Emperor was dead, the rebels won, and the Republic was, prosperous, and everybody was happy. We need to know how we got from this really happy, good-lucky ending to everything is crap. The First Order is in control of everything and destroying everybody and killing people, and there's this new guy with tons of force powers who's in charge of everything. We need to know how that happened.
And especially when they tie him intrinsically. It's not just a character that are like, so there's rumors that there's a new Force user. His name's Snoke. What's the deal with him? I don't know. Luke is like, yeah, no, we've known about him for a really long time. In fact, Leia
Everyone
was
knows
convinced.
Snoke is,
Yeah, like
apparently.
everyone knows. Leia thought that Snoke had gotten to him beforehand, and Snoke had already turned Kylo's mind when I was training him.
I
Where
wondered
did he show
about
up?
that.
When did
It
that
gets-
happen?
It sounds like it was like Leia and Han Solo at the daycare, and then like Snoke was in the corner trying to. Like,
Snoke was
tease
like,
Kylo
he's
or
at the-
something.
he's at the
That's what
retirement
it
home.
sounds like. It's like
They're at the retirement
seemed-
home, like, oh, who's that old grandpa there? And he's like waving his hand in front of Kylo. You will turn.
how has
you're
this
older.
guy, who's like behind this entire new empire that's like taking over the world essentially, and he's just been like around, like Leia and
Yeah,
Han.
like,
it's just
how
like,
did
oh
it
yeah,
happen?
Snoke.
Right.
How was
Doesn't
he
make any
around?
sense.
How did people know
okay.
he was around? Did he? I don't know.
And
I
here's
was
the-
saying
here's-
over time. All right, well, I'll let you finish, Fire.
Go. No, you go first because I might trail off a little bit.
Can I just say that, like,
Yeah.
I never considered this point of view before, that it's different because it's a sequel. If I think about it, if I think about the Force Awakens as being the starting point, suddenly Snoke's death doesn't matter to me.
Yeah, no, that's the problem. Is that
Was he just a red herring? Was that all he was?
That's basically all he was. Is
yeah,
so,
that's
like,
essentially all. Because
subvert your
it was for him
expectations.
to make way for Kylo to become the main villain. Which that's the point I wanted to touch upon, is that Kylo is the villain. But yeah, no, I do agree with you, Takuma. If the other movies never happened and this was our starting point, I think Snoke's death would mean a lot less. But it's because we left. This is meant to be a sequel, and we left off from a point, and now we're at a new point, and we don't know how we got there. It's so jarring, and it doesn't make any sense, and it's ridiculous to believe that we don't get any kind of information as to how that happened in these movies. And I know we get more info in the books, and I don't care.
Yeah,
it doesn't matter.
It doesn't belong in the books.
It doesn't belong in the books. It should be in the movie.
So I've always tried to go, like, when in this movie, I always try to come up with solutions to different things I have with the, like, now whenever I'm pointing about a movie, I always try to, like, think about what is a solution to this problem? What's the solution to Snoke? I don't, if knowing how this is Snoke's character arc, and I understand that JD didn't know this when he was writing the Snoke initially at the very beginning of Force Awakens, but Snoke should not have existed at all. What they should have done, honestly, is probably just had like some high-ranking Imperial general. You know, that makes a guy who is part of the Empire way back when, if all falls apart, he's a brilliant military guy. He gets all the remnants of the, in the Outer Rim, because that's where the First Order comes from. He gets them all together, and then he's organizing this like military.
It's essentially the new rebellion,
right?
And
that makes,
instead of what would have worked too. Mm-hmm. Instead of a clown that we got, what if that was Hux?
Right, exactly.
He's not a young clown, stupid character. He's an old, grizzled general who was there from the very beginning, who helped reestablish everything.
Or even if you want,
because we don't need that explanation.
Listen,
we don't need.
If you want to stick to this whole thing where like Kylo kills him in the middle of this movie too, have it be Hux's dad. Have it be like this thing. There's a military general. He's hardened and everything, and he has a kind of bratty son who's like brought up because of his dad thing. And then now Kylo and Hux have added tension now because that
actually makes even more sense. Yeah.
Yeah.
If it was Hux's dad instead of Snoke.
And now what you don't need this guy's backstory, right? You can get it. The Empire went down. We saw that. He's a military guy. He just he went and he gathered everything together, and he's forming his own kind of resistance, and that's where the First Order comes from. All right, cool. I don't need to see that then. I don't need to see that. That you can put in the books, right?
You can fill in the gaps. You can
fill in those gaps, right?
Where he was.
You don't need to question, what's he doing this entire time? Well, he's a military guy, right? So that's what he's been doing. He's been getting the First Order together. Now that we know where Kylo's going, there's no point to Kylo. Like, Kylo could have just turned to the dark side by himself. There's no need for Snoke because he's not going to factor into the next movies.
Yeah. And another point. So the point was brought up in the YouTube chat about how Snoke isn't the main bad guy, so that his death doesn't matter. Kylo is the main bad guy, and Snoke's death facilitated Kylo to become the main bad guy. And honestly, that this point is being made as though it kind of loosens, the severity of Snoke's death, but I think actually it's the complete opposite. Right. To me, it makes it worse. Right. Because now that means Kylo Ren's origin is tied to a story that we don't get. It's tied, the entire thing that facilitates Kylo Ren to becoming our main antagonist, we don't know. We don't get that information. Snoke's whole being is shrouded in mystery. We don't know how it happened. We don't know how we got here. And then he's just killed off.
Right.
He's the reason that Kylo becomes our antagonist. Why don't we know anything about that?
This thing where we have the concept of having an Imperial general. The reason why that works too, and it can everything that they want to do with this movie works if that is the case, right? Kylo killing someone, becoming the main villain, becoming the head of the First Order, and doing all that stuff, that still works and it still makes sense. The problem with Snoke is that Snoke is intrinsically tied to the main point of conflict behind Kylo, and that's the fact that he turned to the dark side. That whole thing is tied into his character. We know from Luke and everything that essentially Snoke had been infecting Kylo's mind somehow. We don't know that. And that is the crux of his character. The reason why everyone's in this whole predicament right now is because Kylo turned. Luke has exiled himself because Kylo turned. Leia's formed this resistance to take out the First Order because Kylo turned. All this stuff is happening because of this major point that is the crux of his character. And yet we will never get to see the relationship of it. We'll never get to see the entirety of that. That's a story that we're not going to get because that character doesn't matter anymore. So the fact that, yes, I agree, Snoke is not the main villain, Kylo is, but that doesn't make it better. That doesn't make what happened to this character better. It doesn't make the writers who wrote this movie tying Snoke into every part of Kylo better, because we don't get to see that. We're just told that. So we don't get this, and we don't get that. If they just weren't to do that, if they just gave us more scenes of Kylo and Snoke, outside of just the one scene at the beginning where he's like, "Oh, you're a failure. Get out of my face." We don't get to see them as a master and apprentice. We don't get to see him as, we don't get to see Kylo struggle with Snoke or how he wants to overthrow him or anything. We get none of that. It just happens.
Yeah. So
It really sounds like we just utterly hate this movie right now, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does.
Yeah, it does.
And it's unfortunate because there's a lot to complain about. But there's also like I do
stuff.
like the movie.
Oh, it was overall a good movie. It's just the bad parts are much more glaring.
Yeah, and for me,
and
this movie has a
far-reaching.
lot of highs and a lot of lows, and I think
Right.
those highs and lows are really grand. Like I have a lot. There's huge highs, like Luke coming out to like take on like just the entire First Order army right there. That was so cool.
What the entire like last planet too, just how it's designed with the red and the salt, it's just so really.
I mean,
really good.
it's obvious they did that for the visual. What's the word I'm looking for? Spectacle.
Yeah,
but it was a really cool visual spectacle.
It was awesome though.
It's like literally the only reason those ships can't just fly under their own power and actually have to have a thing in the ground is so that it could kick up all that red.
Yeah,
but I'm willing to overlook that.
All right,
because
Prentice.
it was
Cool. Prentice did mention that Leia formed a resistance prior to Kylo's turning. That's fair enough. That was not mentioned in the movie somewhere, but that is probably canon through some book or something. So I won't argue that in terms of like what's in canon and what isn't. But
yeah,
the fact that
the lore doesn't like.
Yeah,
arguing lore doesn't really matter because
Sure.
like obviously there's answers to everything. You can answer everything and every problem you have by just saying, "Oh, read this book or read this comic." But
yeah,
it's what the movies tell us that I think is
Right.
a big problem.
The movies are the main thing that like Star Wars is tied to. It's a movie franchise first and foremost, and like so many people go. It's this movie.
should
The
be
last
all
one made
the
like $1 billion. This one's gonna make around $1 billion domestically. That means like just in the U.S., which is gonna be,
It's important
insane.
to remember that we aren't arguing that this doesn't make any sense in the lore, because I'm sure it does make sense in the lore. We're arguing that for the sake of the narrative that the movies are structuring, it doesn't make sense.
Right. As
Information that we're given in this trilogy, this narrative structure, it doesn't make any sense or came out of nowhere.
I feel like one thing that someone in the chat also mentioned up here.
All right, I'm going to cut you off real quick just to say that we're running a little long, so we're probably going to talk about maybe like one or two more things before we wrap up. So we probably
I want to have some closing thoughts before we end it.
Yeah, so we're gonna move into that shortly here. So just keep that in mind. So what were you gonna say?
One thing, someone brought up the whole thing of the New Republic as well, and how like what they're doing is kind of deconstructing Star Wars essentially, and kind of like turning into the First Order. I feel that a lot of people I've read online, that's people saying that this movie's about failures and how people fail as as characters, and how these characters aren't going to do the same thing as it in the previous trilogy. If I had to say the big change that I would have made to make this movie to highlight that, which I think would have worked way better, I would have moved the attack from Starkiller Base onto New Republic from like halfway through the first movie for whatever reason. I don't know why they have it like in the middle there, and move it to the end at this movie. I feel like part of the deal is that like we don't get to see the New Republic, and we don't get to see the results of why everything's been really what the characters all fought for at the end of Episode 6, and we don't get to see why everyone's such in a dire position at the end of this movie. And the middle of the first movie, Starkiller Base destroys the New Republic just out of the blue, right? That's just kind of like a thing, and we don't even really get to. It's not really. I mean, it's
that
mentioned,
impactful because we didn't know them.
No, if they had moved that. If we had gotten some... Okay, so if they restructured this movie to where all the stuff that happens on Canto Bight and all that stuff is happening on areas controlled by the New Republic, and we're able to get that like whole deal...
We get to know what life was like during the New Republic.
Doing this era of peace where everything's going around, right? And then, at the end... They have that whole thing, and Poe is doing the thing where he's like, I can go and I can blow up the Death Star at the last second, just like Luke did right before it destroys the not the Resistance.
Yeah.
What's the other one called? The Rebellion back in Episode 4. If they fail on that, because that's what happens. If they fail and the Starkiller Base destroys all the New Republic worlds, and everyone's like, what? How could we...
We understand the severity of that.
Yeah. Now it's like, okay, that's failure, and that ties into this whole thing that everyone's doing now. And we also get to see the New Republic. We get to see all that stuff, and the character arcs that the characters are going to go through will make more sense on top of that. Because...
Yeah, we'll get to see them dealing with that change.
Right,
Exactly.
exactly. And that does hone in that thing of failure and how you're not your heroes and these aren't the same people and everything. And it subverts, even though it's like they built a new Death Star, it subverts the whole thing that this is just episode 4 all over again. This is just episode 5 all over again. That's a new thing they could have done with these characters. That would have been cool.
Okay.
I want to give someone else.
Moving along, one final thing I wanted to talk about, just really briefly, really quick. Just one thing I wanted to mention before we go into closing comments is that
Porks.
Okay, two things. Two things.
They're just merchandise bears.
I was fine with porks. I thought they were cute. I actually like.
Yeah, I didn't think they were overdone. Some people were like, "Oh, they're like a new deal," but the Ewoks are overdone. These aren't.
Yeah, I mean, at least the porgs weren't intrinsic to the plot, like the Ewoks.
They didn't interfere or anything like that, which, yeah, I'm fine with it. It's just, it feels like literally the only reason they're there is, oh, look, cute new animals, they're merchandise.
Yeah,
sure.
I mean, that's true.
Legit. Yeah, that's
also
true.
to cover up the puffins, but, it's whatever.
And what was the other thing?
The other thing was Luke's character, because X, this is something that you seem really passionate about. This is something that I'm seeing a lot of people are passionate about, and I wanted to...
I'm, like... It just feels kind of weird, and I'm trying to shed some light on like why people are angry with Luke and why it just feels so wrong with Luke. I have some issues with Luke. I think they could have gone this path, but the way they did it didn't seem right and seemed out of character. I do like the concept of just a Jedi who's just like, let's end this. I don't care, just. But go on.
Okay. Well, see, for me, I'm seeing a lot of people complain that the Luke Skywalker in this movie didn't. I don't know. It felt like they changed his character, but I don't know. I actually didn't get that. I thought Luke was perfectly fine in this movie, and the only thing that I didn't like was that he changed on his ideals at the end of the movie.
Yep.
And that wasn't consistent. But I felt like the old man character that was begrudging and like was he didn't like anything. He abandoned his friends. I thought it was all fine.
Jaded and completely disenchanted with how the Jedi were presented.
Yeah, I thought that was fine.
I
don't really know where people are coming from, honestly, when they're saying that this character wasn't Luke.
Well,
I feel like it's a natural evolution of this guy.
One thing, actually, the Rooster Teeth podcast brought up, which I did think was an interesting point, is that Anakin, like people, there's several paths to the dark side. Fear, anger, hate, all these things are things that that push you towards the dark side. And Anakin's was fear. He was always fearful as a kid. He was always fearful of his mother. He was fearful of his of Padme. He was fearful of all these things happening, and that was his gateway to the dark side. But Luke's has always been anger. Whenever the closest Luke comes to turning the dark side is when he's fighting Darth Vader, and he essentially channels the dark side in order to defeat him. And you can see that anger rising up as soon as Darth Vader mentions Leia and how he's going to come after Leia. That's when he gets really passionate about that, right?
That against him is anger.
Right. So the idea is that that Luke in this movie, his whole thing for turning away and everything, that whole deal was made from him reacting to fear instead of anger, and anger is usually his gateway, and instead he channeled something that shouldn't have been intrinsic to his character. So the argument is that they should have worked in some way to make anger an intrinsic part of why he turned away from the Jedi or something like that, which I thought was an interesting point. I don't necessarily I wouldn't say, I like what it did with Luke's character. I understand some people who say that it's a different character in the original trilogy, but there's been 20 years, and people change a lot in 20 years.
Yeah. I get that, Luke's thing was always anger, but, I don't think that the pathway to the dark side is dominated by one emotion. I think
I think it's
complex characters, and they can have multiple emotions. And I think...
I agree with that.
Because a lot of people are, saying how it's so out of character that Luke would even consider killing Kylo or Ben Solo in his sleep, and I just don't agree with that at all. I don't see where people are coming from with that. Imagine, because the thing is that Luke is seeing the potential future that could happen if this kid were to turn into the dark side. This is one of the strongest Force users in the world, potentially turning to the dark side like Darth Vader. It's essentially like going back in time and looking at baby Hitler, right? And knowing that that's baby Hitler. And being like, if I could stop World War II from happening, I could stop the Holocaust from happening right now. I think
But that-
Okay,
But
I
you know
think
what?
Luke's character was that he saw some light in there, like his dad. Like they feel like that's
yeah,
a
but
parallel.
Luke also wasn't around to see the atrocities that Darth Vader committed for the majority of his life, though. Like he got there after the fact. He was aware of everything after the fact.
He lived in a world where Darth Vader was the most feared
and the only direct thing that happened to him because of Darth Vader, the Empire's control, was that his parents were murdered, and that's what drove him,
Right.
or not? His aunt and uncle, and that's what drove him to becoming, part of, or working with the rebellion. But before that, he was just a farm boy. He just lived in this place. He didn't care.
Listen, I would say if the character Luke from the original trilogy, though, if he saw Anakin right before he was going to kill the younglings, and he could see in the Force that Anakin was going to kill the younglings, he would have made a different choice.
Exactly.
I do think that he still recognized light in Kylo as well, but
he was about to kill Darth Vader, and the only reason he didn't was because he saw himself in Darth Vader. He realized what he was becoming by embracing the anger when he was mowing down Darth Vader with his lightsaber at the end of Revenge of the Sith.
Yeah,
or not Revenge of the Sith, Return of the Jedi.
That's a thing that plays on an imagery that was set up in the 5th movie, where he slices off Darth Vader's head, and then the mask blows open, and it's him, and you're like, what? That's so crazy.
So I don't understand where people are coming from, where they're like, oh, he was this noble hero who went out of his way to redeem Darth Vader. No, he didn't. He tried, and he failed, and then he tried to kill him, and then he realized, oh, maybe I shouldn't kill him, and then he happened to just be able to redeem him because he was going to be killed by the Emperor regardless. If anything, it was the Emperor that redeemed Darth Vader, not Luke. And I don't know, it's just Luke has always been a terrible Jedi throughout the entire original trilogy. He was never good at being a Jedi. He was too old. He lacked the training. He didn't listen to Yoda when he told him not to go. Yoda even warned him that he might turn to the dark side. He's never been this perfect Jedi that people imagine Luke was going to be. I thought that Luke's character in The Last Jedi was very much a grounded, realistic evolution of what Luke would turn out to be, honestly.
Agreed.
Mm-hmm.
So I just don't know where people are coming from with this. I think it's honestly a ridiculous
expanded universe, basically.
I do get the idea. That is one of the things for the audience expectations.
Really, that's what it is.
Yeah,
it's a lot of people who read all the
expectations
expanded universe books, and
in the movie, like you said, in the movies, he's pretty proud in the last 2, or the very last episode 6. He seems like a very proud, and he's very Jedi ways. But like I said, I think it's mostly from the fact that the Luke that they've been used to over the years in the expanded universe, me and my friends alike, it's just completely different, and it's just I don't know, it's going to be very weird seeing this movie
but even
10 20 years from now, because episode 5 was really critically not a nice movie when it first came out, so maybe this will be a classic, timeless at some point. I don't know.
I agree there. I think that this movie is going to go down in history as one of the better Star Wars movies, honestly. But I think that's a whole other conversation to have.
It might. JJ might redeem it, possibly, and I might come out with a better opinion of it once I see 9. But I think that'll be the work that Abrams is going to put into redeeming this movie and making the stuff that was.
I don't think so. I think this movie is going to stand on its own. But that's my thought. But I don't know. X, to your point about Return of the Jedi, I even in that movie, he was confident about his powers, yes, but I don't think he was confident about being a Jedi. He wasn't evoking a Jedi presence.
He seemed like a Jedi, if that makes any sense.
I don't think he did. I think he seemed like a Sith. He was dressed in all black. He had his hood up. He was force choking people. He was like, or not force choking people, but he was just. Well, actually, no, he did force choke someone, didn't he?
Luke, yeah,
I don't remember.
He force chokes that guard at the beginning of Jabba's palace.
Yeah, he was storming through things. He was super confident.
He shows up and he looks like a Sith. He has the hood and everything.
He looks like a Sith,
all black, and then he force chokes the guard, or one of the Gamorrean guards, I believe.
Yeah, Princess in the chat confirmed that. So yeah, I don't know, he didn't seem like a Jedi to me in that movie.
Even in the expanded universe, Luke does away with a lot of the stuff that Jedi do. He marries, and everyone in the New Jedi Order marries people. They have romances with a ton of people, and that's not a thing that's forbidden.
And that's what I mean. Yeah, this isn't the expanded universe anymore. That's all gone. But it still made sense to his character. But at the end of this movie, he's all, Yeah, Jedi as they were.
Yeah,
He didn't tell.
just at the end.
It's not like he told Rey go, but don't be like the idea. Go, don't be what the Jedi were. You know, create this new form of
right,
Jedi.
exactly.
It doesn't even
That's
have
the
to be
problem
this.
I have.
Oh, middle ground Grey Knights thing. Just work from the ground up.
What I'm
I
saying is
wish
that, like,
I wish that
additionally,
Luke stayed gray. Or stayed disenchanted with the whole thing. I don't
Or
like that
even-
he ended up turning on that, but
even if he didn't, if this entire movie's point is that Rey's convincing Luke that the Jedi need to come back, and at the end he's like, you know what, you're right, you've convinced me. Rey doesn't do that though. That at no point, the last thing he sees is her talking to Kylo Ren, and then she flies off, and then Yoda comes, and Yoda basically tells Luke, yeah, you're right, the Jedi are down. Here, I'm gonna burn down all the text and the Jedi stuff. I mean, who needs that anymore? Did you read them?
Yeah.
No, you didn't read them. They're boring, right? Yeah.
and I thought that was so in character too that he didn't read the books. He was
I
like,
know.
no, I mean, like, because that's just so that to me that was Luke. That was so Luke. Why would Luke read the Jedi text?
Right.
He couldn't even stay. He couldn't even stay to finish his training, let alone read the books.
That was like I remember like he saw. Now the one thing I do get though is that like Luke people say that the reason Luke's out of character is that Luke abandons everyone, and a huge part of Luke's character, especially in Episode 5, is that he values his friends above anything else, including training as a Jedi. He values his friends over his responsibilities as a Jedi. He values his friends over.
And to that,
right.
I would argue that is true. As a young man, he valued his friends a lot, and he went out of his way to redeem or to stop the Empire from destroying his friends and his family and everything he loves and holds dear, only for that to just happen all over again. After going out of his way to stop it and succeeding, it all just happens again.
Yeah. If anything, him going to save them did more harm than good. It's
Yeah, so I think it's completely in character for him to be like, I put everything I could into stopping this from happening, and it's just happening again. It's just a vicious cycle.
One thing I think would have been really good to see is if we could see that the same way that we saw Rey's weird Force vision when she touched the lightsaber, which I don't think we know how that happened. I don't know why that lightsaber has like mystical abilities. Yeah, sure.
I don't know what the point of it was. I think you can explain it away with it being just Force being in everything and every.
Yeah. Fair enough, but like if like Luke had like we could actually see Luke's vision and we could see things that we know Kylo Ren does later in the movie, where he like kills all of Luke's students and then like he the Starkiller base like blasts through all the New Republic worlds. If we saw Luke seeing that, then like I feel that decision would have made more sense. And then like he sees all the destruction happening he knows Kylo's at the end of it, and he ignites his lightsaber and it cuts back to his thing and he's looking down and there's Kylo right there. That would have been visually a much better way to show what Luke was going through, and I think more people would have been okay with that had they been shown it. Instead, we get Luke just talking about how bad what Kylo is going to be is, and we don't get that as the audience. We should be able to see that, and then we would have been able to.
Oh, dude, it'd have been cool to see like Luke's vision showing like Kylo Ren with like an army of Knights of Ren or something, just slaughtering villages,
slaughtering all the younglings, right? All the villagers, and then like he sees all the people and like all the people he knows, like even on the New Republic, and they all get like blown up because of he sees the beam come down from Starkiller base and kills everyone, and then like then he sees Kylo kill Han. And then see exactly exactly, and he's foreshadowing everything, and then he out of thing he in the vision he turns on his lightsaber, and then we see we cut down the Kylo.
Dude, that's great. So in the vision he sees like Kylo Ren like coming up towards him or something, so he turns on his lightsaber, and it cuts to real life and he has the lightsaber out. So it wasn't even him thinking he was going to kill little Ben Solo. It was him fighting Kylo Ren.
The idea. He's killing the idea.
Really
See,
good.
we just saw that. Imagine we just saw that in the movie. Oh man.
Oh.
Every time we have these conversations all the time, and we come up with like, what if we just did this? What if we just? Oh man, I think that would have absolved not everyone's fears about Luke, but a lot of people who are thinking it's out of Luke's character, they would have been a bit more on board with that had they shown it that way or something like that. It doesn't mean exactly like that, but like, there you go.
Yeah. All right. Well, you guys have anything else to say about Luke?
No.
Okay. Nah, I'm good with Luke.
All right. In that case, let's go ahead and wrap this up with our closing thoughts on the movie. I'm going to start with UX.
I hated the comedy. It felt like I was watching Big Bang Theory, and
Yeah.
it felt filthy.
Sometimes.
And I did
I
not
will say
like
this,
it.
X.
But
Star Wars
did
has some
like the
pretty
story.
bad comedy.
If anyone else is talking right now, everyone's just cutting out, making robot noises, and I have no idea what you guys are saying. I'm just excited to see what this movie, what people think of it in the far future, and I also want to know what happens with Episode 9. I think that with everything, the weight of what Star Wars has behind it, I think it could have gone a lot worse, and I think this is it's not as terrible as everyone's making it out to be. I think it's very hard to put it into words, but I'm not as pissed at life as people think I am. There you go.
All right. Takuma, do you have any final thoughts?
No, I think I've pretty much summed. Like my only final thought is, well, it's more of a disclaimer than anything else. It's just, as I've said before, as easy it is to sit here and just tear apart everything that was wrong with the movie, I didn't hate the movie. I thought there was plenty of good stuff. It's just, it wasn't as far-reaching, or, yeah.
Yeah, I got that. Yeah,
I'm glad I saw the
feel
movie.
very similarly.
I'm glad I saw the movie. It's just,
Yeah.
it could have been better. And for someone like me, or I'm sure any of us here who have been invested in Star Wars as long as we have, it's hard to see things like this happen.
It's like
We're not criticizing it because we hate Star Wars. We're criticizing it because we love Star Wars.
It's like when BIONICLE G2 ended. When we talked bad about it the entire time. It wasn't that we hated all of it. It was that we cared so much about it that all the flaws that came up to us, we were like, but it's like it felt very meaningful to us.
It's like when you have to punish your child. It's not because you hate it. It's because there's something wrong.
I'm not mad, The Last Jedi. I'm just disappointed.
That's actually pretty true.
Oh crap! We never did do call-ins.
Who needs? Okay, listen. Does
Dang
anyone
it,
need to
I
go?
forgot about that.
Does anyone need to go? Like,
I mean, that
Yes.
depends on what you
Yeah.
mean by do they need to go?
Yes.
Because I kind of gotta go.
yeah.
I don't think we're gonna have enough time. I really wanted to do them, but
That
I really
sucks.
wanted to do them too. Maybe we can.
yeah, sorry about that, guys. I forgot it. I forgot all about it.
I forgot. Are we out of time already?
Yeah,
Alright.
we're already
Alright.
30 minutes over. Yeah.
That sucks. I kind of wanted to hear people. I want to hear at least one person's opinion on it. We'll get to it later.
We might
closing thoughts?
return to it another time.
Yeah. Closing thoughts for me are that along the same with Takuma, I do actually like this. Like a lot of the aspects of the movie. It's very well constructed, very well directed, very well acted. It's just the script that I have issues with. Two more notes. Don't like Rose at all. Think Rose is really boring.
She was
doesn't
awful.
really end it. Just awful character. Her plot with Finn is so heavy-handed, where they rescue the space ponies, and it's just kind of like
It was
Yeah. No.
it was such a moralizing scene. It's like
I
you should
know.
feel bad about these animals. These people are bad. How dare they?
how
Did Peter write this section of the movie?
You're serious?
Animals
the
should be
moment-
free.
the moment when they
Now
let
it's
the
worth it.
now it's worth it. I was like, come on, get out with this. Come on. The best comment I saw on the subreddit, like someone was like, does anyone else really like Rose? And the top comment was like, nah, the wrong sister died.
Dude, I agree. The other sister was way more compelling.
Oh, can you imagine if we had someone who was like another military person that could contrast Poe and actually bring something cool to the franchise instead of having, whoever Rose is, just the
And the
peanut
romance thing was beyond
That
forced.
was terrible. It was
so
awful.
to the point
No
where
chemistry
I
at
actually
all.
I think that the point of that might have been that like Rose read too much into it, because literally Finn's face when she kisses him, he's like, the what now?
Yeah, I legitimately
What?
think no one told John Boyega that was going to happen.
I
And
think
like
that's it.
the actress just kissed him, and he was just like, "What? Wait, what?" Because that's what it looked like.
Yeah,
I
I don't know. He
It
seems
was-
very
I thought that
caring
was-
at the end when she's kind of laying there. But
yeah, because he has to let her down
the
slowly. He was like, "Oh, you nearly
Yeah.
died." Another thing, real quick. I think Poe should have been the one to save Finn from crashing into from dying basically and sacrificing himself. I feel like that ends his character arc.
kiss
pretty
Yeah,
nicely.
because that would reflect on what he has
and
learned
then Poe
throughout
could
the
kiss
movie.
Finn, and then
Poe can kiss Finn.
Yeah, because he really liked him in his jacket. It's foreshadowing.
Yeah.
It all works. Hire us, Disney.
They came together. And Rey should have turned to the dark side. That's my. I feel like that should have been the big deal.
Because that would
That
be
has
very
a purpose.
different. Like,
No,
doesn't
yeah,
have a
see,
purpose
that's
the
anymore.
good guys.
That's the thing. That's the change I think would have really been like, wow, where are we gonna go with Episode 9? Because if Rey had turned to the dark side with Kylo
She's no
Ren
longer
and
Mary
those were our
Sue
bad
anymore.
guys, like
Even if she turned to the dark side without him, and it was two dark side people against each other, what if that
even
was a
then,
thing?
That would have been crazy. I think that is the movie that could have been crazy, off the walls. Who knows what's gonna happen if we had Rey turn to the dark side? I would have loved that. We didn't get that. Instead, we have status quo. Instead, we have Jedi versus Sith again. So.
Yep, and yeah, that's about. Well, that's not everything I have to say in this movie. I could talk about this movie for hours and hours and hours on end.
Dude,
Should we do another Should we do another live stream to get
I want to
call-ins?
just keep going. Honestly, I could keep going for.
No, we're gonna end it here. We might do another one at some point though.
Yeah,
Let's-
that's what I'm saying. Like to have
Yeah.
like a discussion.
I'm down.
Because like Star
Maybe-
Wars
maybe
is
with
a very
some-
big thing.
We can
yeah,
do like
maybe
a,
with some different people on, and we can
Yeah.
get some different opinions and do some call-ins.
I like
think
to,
it's a
like
good idea.
yeah, have like Ven on or something, and then we can have.
Because yeah,
call-in
I've
and
listened to
stuff.
so many podcasts and opinions in this movie. I could literally talk about this thing for days.
Ages, dude. It's been one of my favorite things to talk about. But
My closing thoughts on the movie. I really liked it as much as I hated it. So it's pretty funny that I think it's very divisive, and I think it was intentionally very divisive, and I think that is kind of the hidden genius behind it for me. I really do like that aspect of it. I think it was really intentional for it to be that way, and I think that it leads credence to this movie being a bit more impactful than like The Force Awakens, for instance. I think we're going to be talking about this movie for a long time. Years from now, I think that this movie is going to be marked down in history as one of the Star Wars movies that people talk about because of how divisive it is, because of what it brought to the table. And I think that is something truly special here. With that said, I think there are things that it's really like you either like it or you don't. And I think there's a lot of things that I didn't like with this movie. And I think it was designed for me to not like it. So it is what it is. Like I said earlier, 6 out of 10 movie, but it had some incredible moments. Holdo sacrifice, incredible. Battle on Crate, incredible. Just a lot of awesome stuff. Oh, Reylo! The Reylo scene is probably my favorite thing to ever happen in Star Wars. I loved that entire thing.
It's one of the best scenes in Star Wars.
Oh my
just
gosh.
Hands down. Snoke's throne room is one of the best sets they've had in Star Wars.
Oh, that set is
since ever.
beautiful.
It's a gorgeous set,
my
and
God.
the way it's framed and everything is it's really good.
Oh, I loved that.
I had yeah, okay.
I will always be able to come back to this movie and find things to enjoy, and also find things to analyze and pick apart and talk about. And I think that really does make this movie a really special one. The Force Awakens is forgettable compared to this one, I think. So as much as I like that one, I don't think anyone's going to talk about it.
I agree with that a lot. Force Awakens is because it's so safe. It doesn't do anything different, so you don't talk about it. That doesn't mean that the change is good. Doesn't mean that different is necessarily automatically better. But
yeah,
it is talked about a lot more.
Yeah. So as much as I hate it, I also really like it. So that's why I'm so down the middle with my rating. So it's really good. It's also really bad. So yeah, as Paranic Films in the chat says, it's a weird movie.
It's a weird movie. Yeah,
it's a weird movie, and I think that's great. So, all right, guys, that is going to wrap up this episode of the TTV Podcast 277. We talked about Star Wars. Hope you guys liked it. If you want to join our live studio audience, which is the patron chat that you see in this video here, you can do that by heading over to our Patreon at patreon.com/the TTV channel. You can donate $1 a month or more, depending on whatever you decide, and you can join in on that. We were going to do call-ins. I forgot about it. Sorry about that, patrons. We're going to try and do another stream where we actually do call-ins, and our patrons will be able to call in and discuss the movie with us.
Right.
So we'll do that at some point. But until then, we will see you guys next time. I'm Var.
I'm John.
I'm Takuma Nuva.
I'm XX Trooper.
And this has been the TTV Podcast. Goodbye, everybody.
So now's the part where I talk about my week, right?
Maybe next stream. All right. Are we off the air?
Not yet.